Have you ever heard of an army that never moved? An army with no voices, no breath, but full of life? This is the story of 8,000 clay soldiers, buried deep underground, standing guard for a dead emperor. They were forgotten for 2,000 years, until a simple farmer found one with his shovel. Who built them? Why were they made? And what secret message do they carry from the past? In this story, you will travel through time. You will meet a king who feared death and built a kingdom of clay to fight it. This is more than history. It's a mystery, a drama, and a lesson about power, fear, and human dreams. Let's begin. Chapter 1: The Discovery Beneath the Dirt. It started with a shovel and a secret under the earth. In 1974, in the dry land of Xi'an, China, a group of farmers were digging a well. They needed water for their crops. The ground was hard. The sun was hot. One man, named Yang Jifa, hit something strange. It was not a rock. It was not a root. It was a head. Not a human head. Not an animal. It was made of clay. The man cleaned it. He looked closer. A nose, eyes, a helmet. He had found a soldier. But not just one. Soon they found more. Legs, arms, bodies, then rows of feet, then hundreds, thousands of soldiers buried in silence. The farmers did not know what they had found. So they called the local museum. The experts came quickly. They brushed the dirt with soft tools. They took photos. They began to whisper, "This is ancient. This is Qin Dynasty. This is history." The news spread fast. Archaeologists from around the world rushed to Xi'an. What they saw left them breathless. An underground world. A full army made of clay. Soldiers standing in perfect lines. Each one full size. Each one different. Eyes, hair, ears, armor. Some looked old. Some looked young. Some were smiling. Some were serious. All silent. All waiting. All guarding something. But what? Soon the answer came. This was the army of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. He had died over 2,000 years ago, and these soldiers were made for him. Not for war, not for fighting, but for the afterlife. The emperor believed in life after death. He believed he would live forever in another world. So he wanted soldiers to protect him there, just like in real life. Can you imagine? A ruler so powerful, so afraid of death, that he made an army from the earth itself? Not just 10 soldiers, not 100, but over 8,000. And that was only the beginning. They found horses too, chariots, weapons, even performers like acrobats and musicians. It was a kingdom underground, a city of clay, frozen in time. But why didn't anyone know? Why did the world forget for 2,000 years? Because after the emperor died, his tomb was hidden. buried under a large hill, covered with dirt and trees. The secret was lost. People walked over it, lived near it, never knowing what was below. Until 1974. Until a farmer's shovel found the first crack in history's silence. Today, people travel from all over the world to see it, to stand in front of those ancient faces, to wonder who made them, how long did it take, and what else is still buried. The clay army doesn't speak, but it tells a story, without words, a story of power, fear, and a dream of living forever. And this story is only beginning. Chapter 2. The First Emperor's Dream. He was just 13 when he became king, but he wanted more than a crown. He wanted to rule the world. His name was Ying Zheng. At 13, he became the king of Qin, a small kingdom in ancient China. But small was not enough. He looked around. China was broken. 7 kingdoms, always fighting. No peace, no unity, just war. So he made a plan, a bold plan, a dangerous plan. He would conquer them all. It took him 10 years, battle after battle, victory after victory. His soldiers marched across mountains and rivers, and finally, he won. All of China was under his rule. He gave himself a new name, Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. He was not like other rulers. He was strong. He was feared. He was obsessed with control. He wanted everything the same. Same money, same laws, same roads, same writing. He believed one country needs one voice, his voice. But power is never safe. The emperor was afraid. Afraid of enemies. Afraid of rebels. Afraid of death. He asked his doctors, "How can I live forever?" They gave him potions, magic drinks. Some said they had found the elixir of life. But the truth? The drinks were full of mercury, a poison. The more he drank, the weaker he became. Still, he refused to stop. One day, he looked at the sky and said, "When I die, I will not be alone. I will take my army with me." And so, he gave the order, "Build me an eternal army." Thousands of workers were chosen. They worked day and night, in secret, in silence. No one could speak of it. No one could leave. What were they building? An empire for the afterlife. A tomb bigger than any palace. And inside it, 8,000 soldiers, made of clay. The emperor believed in the next life, and he believed in war. He thought death was just another kingdom, and he must rule that kingdom too. But how do you build an army that never sleeps, that never eats, that never dies? You build it from earth. No one dared say no. No one asked why. He was the Son of Heaven, the Emperor of all under heaven. His word was law. And his dream? To live forever as a god among men. But dreams do not last forever. And one day, the emperor died. Suddenly, on a long journey. His men hid the news. They were afraid of rebellion. They brought his dead body back in secret and buried it deep under the ground. With it, his army, thousands of soldiers, horses, chariots, everything he needed for war in the next world. And then, silence for 2,000 years. Chapter 3. Building the Army of Clay. It was not magic. It was not a miracle. It was the work of hands, thousands of them. The emperor had spoken. Build me an army for the afterlife. And the workers began. They were not soldiers. They were not famous artists. They were farmers, slaves, prisoners, and craftsmen, men from all over China, men with no names, only work. Some made bricks, some shaped heads, others molded hands, feet, and faces, all from clay. Can you imagine? Making thousands of statues, life-size, with details, with weapons, with armor. It took years, maybe decades. They worked in silence. They lived underground. They were not allowed to leave. This was the emperor's most secret project. Each soldier was special. No two faces were the same. Some had mustaches, some had beards, some looked old, some looked young. Even their shoes were different. Why? Because the emperor wanted a real army, not just a copy, a true army, full of life, strength, and order. There were archers holding bows, generals standing tall, officers wearing long robes, chariots ready to move, and behind them rows and rows of warriors. Over 8,000 clay soldiers. Some people say each face was based on a real man, maybe a real soldier from Qin's own army. If that's true, then the army is more than just art. It's a mirror of the living world. But the builders didn't stop at soldiers. They made horses, too. Over 600 of them. Strong, proud, loyal. They made chariots from bronze, with wheels and decorations. They even built stables, kitchen workers, musicians, and acrobats. The emperor wanted everything. War, music, service, power. Just like in life. The clay came from the local ground, but the fire gave it life. After shaping each piece, they fired it in kilns, hot ovens made from earth. The clay became strong, hard, ready to last forever. Then came the color. Yes, they were once painted. Red, blue, green, purple, bright and bold. The soldiers were not always gray. They looked alive. But over time, the paint cracked. The color disappeared. All that remains now is dust. And what about the workers? After finishing their job, many were killed. Why? To protect the secret. To keep the tomb hidden. Their hands built the emperor's dream, but their lives were buried with it. This was not just building, it was faith, fear, and the will of one man, a man who could order the impossible. And they obeyed. Now we walk through those silent halls, but their hands are still there, in every statue, every face, every warrior who never speaks, but never disappears. Chapter 4: Warriors Without Faces. Look closely. These are not just statues. These are faces with stories, frozen in clay. When you enter the emperor's tomb, you do not see one face. You see thousands, rows and rows of soldiers, all standing, all silent, all ready. But something strange happens when you look again. No two are the same. One has wide eyes, another narrow eyes. One smiles. Another looks angry. Some have thick beards, others have none. Some wear battle armor, others wear long robes. Even their hair is different. Top knots, braids, buns. Some stand tall and proud. Others seem tired. Some are missing ears or fingers. From time, not from war. Why? Why did the builders give each soldier a different face? It would have been easier to make them the same, faster, cheaper. But no. This was not just art. This was a message. The first emperor wanted more than protection. He wanted immortality. He wanted to recreate the real world in death. Each clay soldier may have been modeled after a real man. Maybe a general. Maybe a guard. Maybe a simple farmer forced into battle. Their faces are their memories. Historians believe there were different factories inside the tomb area. Each factory made parts: heads, arms, legs, hands. Then they assembled the pieces like a puzzle. But even in mass production, they gave the soldiers individuality. Craftsmen added tiny changes: a different smile, a scar on the cheek, a wrinkle near the eyes. Why? Because people are not copies. And neither were these warriors. And there's more. They were once full of color. Yes, red lips, black hair, pink faces, even blue and green armor. Today, they look cold, gray, like stone. But back then, they were full of life. Like real men standing at attention, waiting for the emperor's orders. Some soldiers even have names written inside their parts, like secret signatures from the workers who built them. Why? Maybe for quality control. Maybe for pride. Maybe to say, I was here. I made this. A small act of courage. In a time where workers had no voice. So when you see these faces, don't just see soldiers. See humans. See fear. See strength. See the story of a world long gone, but not forgotten. Even now, the army watches. They don't move. They don't speak, but they remember. And maybe they're still waiting for their emperor to return. Chapter 5. The Death That Changed History. Even the most powerful man must one day die. But what happened after shocked a nation. The first emperor had a plan. He wanted to live forever. He drank potions. He listened to magicians. He feared death more than anything. But death doesn't listen to fear. In the year 210 BCE, Emperor Qin Shi Huang died suddenly. He was traveling far from his palace, on a secret journey, searching for life without end. But instead, he met the end. His officials panicked. They were alone, far from the capital. If people knew the emperor was dead, chaos would explode. So, they made a choice. They hid his death. They placed his body in a cart, covered it with clothes, and filled the cart with fish. Yes, fish. Why? To hide the smell of death during the long trip home. They pretended he was still alive. They sent orders in his name. They smiled and lied. But once they reached the palace, the real trouble began. Who would rule next? The emperor had many children. He chose his oldest son to be the next ruler. But one official, named Zhao Gao, had other plans. He changed the will. He told lies. He tricked the emperor's younger son, Hu Hai, into taking the throne. Then, he killed the older brother. Now, the empire had a new leader, but not a strong one. Hu Hai was young, weak, and afraid. He followed Zhao Gao's orders. He ruled with fear. He killed many people. He raised taxes. The people began to hate him. Rebellions started. The Qin dynasty began to fall, just 15 years after it began. Yes, the great empire that Qin Shi Huang built started to collapse as soon as he died. But there was one thing they didn't destroy: his tomb, deep underground, covered with earth, protected by clay warriors. It was sealed, untouched, hidden from the world, and with it, 8,000 soldiers, 600 horses, hundreds of weapons, and a king who still wanted to rule in death. The workers who built the tomb? Most of them were killed. Why? To protect the secret. No one was supposed to know where the emperor was buried. No one was supposed to enter. And for over 2,000 years, no one did. The tomb was forgotten. The emperor's name faded. Only stories remained, like shadows. Until one day, a farmer digging a well found a piece of the past. A clay head, a mystery, a voice from the grave. The first emperor died, but his dream never did. Chapter 6. A tomb like no other. Buried deep beneath a hill lies a world no one has entered for 2,000 years. You've heard about the army, the warriors, the horses, but they're only part of the mystery. The real secret lies even deeper. Beneath a man-made hill, under layers of stone and dirt, in a hidden chamber, is the tomb of Emperor Qin Shi Huang. No one has ever opened it, not fully. It is still sealed, still untouched. Why? Because what's inside could be dangerous, not just for history, but for human health. Ancient books tell us what's inside. They say the tomb is massive, a full palace underground. There are stars on the ceiling, made of jewels. There are rivers and seas, made from liquid mercury. Yes, mercury, a heavy metal. Beautiful, but toxic. The emperor believed mercury was magical, that it could give him life forever. So his builders used it to create fake rivers, flowing through the tomb, shining in the dark, trapped forever underground. Even today, scientists have tested the area. And guess what? The soil above the tomb has high mercury levels. Very high. So, the ancient stories may be true. But that's not the only danger. Historians believe the tomb is full of traps, arrows that shoot if you enter, stone doors that close behind you, poison gases to kill anyone who tries to steal. A warning from the past. No one wants to destroy the tomb, and no one knows how to open it safely. So, for now, it sleeps. The emperor lies inside, alone, silent, still waiting. But why did he build such a strange tomb? Was it fear, pride, or something more? Maybe he wanted to become a god in the afterlife. Maybe he wanted to rule the next world, just like this one. So he made a world of his own, underground, with rivers, with stars, with warriors, a kingdom for a dead king. It is one of the greatest tombs in human history, bigger than the pyramids of Egypt, more complex, more mysterious. But no one has walked inside. No one has seen its walls. And maybe that's for the best, because some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Chapter 7. The Forgotten Workers. The emperor is remembered. The soldiers are remembered. But the builders disappeared into silence. Who built this incredible army? Who shaped 8,000 warriors, 600 horses, chariots, acrobats, musicians, and the tomb of a god? Not machines, not magic. People, thousands of workers, men, and maybe even women, from every corner of the empire. They came from farms, from prisons, from battlefields. Some were paid, most were not. They lived underground. They worked with clay, stone, fire, and sweat. Day and night. No sun, no joy, no choice. Some were skilled artisans. They knew how to carve wood, shape bronze, and fire pottery. Others were forced laborers. They had no experience, just orders. Their job was simple: build the emperor's dream. No mistakes, no questions, no escape. The work was massive. The army alone may have taken 40 years to complete. Each soldier had to be shaped, fired, painted, and armed, and then carefully placed in long pits, in rows, like real formations in war. They even pointed the soldiers east, toward the lands of past enemies. The emperor thought of everything. But what happened when the work was done? What happens when you build a secret no one must know? You erase the builders. Some stories say that when the tomb was finished, thousands of workers were killed. Why? To keep the location hidden, to protect the treasure inside, to make sure no one ever told the world what lay below. Their names were never written. Their stories were never told. Only whispers remain. Maybe some escaped. Maybe some left secret messages, tiny marks on the clay. But most were forgotten. We remember the emperor. We celebrate the soldiers. We take photos of the tomb. But those who built it, they had no tombs, no statues, no voice. Only their work remains. Next time you look at a terracotta soldier, look closer. See the fingers that shaped the nose, the hands that carved the armor, the sweat behind the clay. That is their story. A story made not from gold, but from labor, from pain, from silence. And maybe that's the real heart of this mystery. Not power, not war, but people. Chapter 8. The Terracotta Horses and Chariots. An army cannot walk alone. It needs power. It needs speed. It needs horses. When the emperor's tomb was opened, people were shocked to find more than just soldiers. There were horses, hundreds of them, strong, silent, made of clay, standing beside the warriors. Next to them were chariots, ancient war vehicles once pulled by real horses. Together, they formed a complete army, ready for battle, even in the afterlife. Why did Qin Shi Huang add horses? Because in his time, horses were a symbol of power. Only the rich, the strong, and the royal could ride them. Horses meant control. They were used in war and in ceremonies. A soldier could walk, but a general rode a horse. So, the emperor made sure his army had both. The terracotta horses are about the same size as real ones. They stand tall, eyes wide, ears up. Some look calm. Some look ready to run. They wear saddles. Some have ropes made of bronze. Each horse was built in pieces, head, body, legs, then joined together with care. And just like the soldiers, each horse is unique. Then come the chariots. Some were used for battle. Others were for the emperor's travels. 2 bronze chariots were found near the tomb, beautifully made. One was for war. The other was for the emperor's final journey. They had tiny windows, detailed wheels, painted decorations. Even the horses were made of bronze, not clay. Why bronze? Because it was stronger, more beautiful, more royal. These chariots were masterpieces, not toys, not models. They were symbols of heaven and earth. Each chariot had a driver and guards. They wore armor. They held reins. The emperor didn't want to travel alone. Not in life, not in death. But these horses never ran. These chariots never rolled. They were buried to serve forever. Why so much? Why not just a few guards? Because Qin Shi Huang didn't think like a man. He thought like a god. He believed the next life was real and just as dangerous as this one. So he built everything again, in clay, bronze, and silence. Soldiers to fight, horses to ride, chariots to carry him, musicians to entertain, acrobats to amaze, a complete world, a royal world, a dead world, alive in clay. And now, when we walk through those pits, we don't just see statues. We see a king's vision, a plan for eternity, a map to the next world. Chapter 9, The Mystery of the Missing Colors. You see them now, all gray, all dusty. But once, they were full of life, full of color. Today, the Terracotta army stands in silence. Their faces are pale. Their armor looks dry. Their bodies, cold, lifeless stone. But it wasn't always like this. Long ago, each warrior was painted. Yes, bright and bold colors, red lips, pink faces, blue armor, green sleeves, gold belts. They looked real. They looked alive. The workers used a special paint called Chinese purple. It was rare, expensive, and difficult to make. Other colors came from minerals, ground stone mixed with glue and egg. Every soldier had color, even the horses, even the weapons. But today, all that color is gone. Why? What happened? The answer is air. The tomb was sealed for over 2,000 years. No wind, no light, no air. The colors stayed safe underground. But when archaeologists opened the tomb, air rushed in, and within seconds, the paint began to fall off. It dried. It cracked. And then it disappeared, like sand in the wind. Some soldiers lost all their color in just 15 minutes. The researchers tried to stop it, but they were too late. Piece by piece, the army turned to gray. Now, scientists are trying new methods. They dig slower. They use chemicals to hold the paint. They keep the air dry and cool. They hope to save the next layer of warriors, to see them as they truly were. But it's difficult, because color is fragile. It's not like clay. It doesn't survive without care. Still, small spots of color remain. A red mark on a finger, a blue patch behind an ear, a tiny line of gold on a belt, little ghosts of the past. So when you visit the Terracotta army, don't think the gray is the full story. Imagine them as they were, bright, powerful, marching in color. A rainbow of warriors, created to impress the gods. The color may be gone, but the memory lives on. And now we know these were not statues for show. They were a true army, painted, prepared, proud, ready to serve a king. Chapter 10. A Message from the Past. They do not speak, they do not move, but they are still, telling us something. 8,000 soldiers, 600 horses, dozens of chariots, all buried underground, all watching, all waiting. For what? For you. For the future, to see, to ask, to wonder. What was Qin Shi Huang trying to say? Was it about power? Yes, he ruled all of China. He unified the land. He created new laws, roads, and coins, and he wanted to keep that control, even after death. So he built a kingdom underground, not just a grave, a statement. Was it about fear? Yes. The emperor feared death. He feared rebellion. He feared being forgotten. So he built an army to protect him, to fight for him, to follow him into the next world. Even in death, he needed control. But maybe it was also about hope. Hope that life continues, hope that legacy matters, hope that his name would live on, and in some way, it has. Because now we speak his name. We study his tomb. We walk among his army. And what do we learn? That humans have always wanted more. More life, more power, more meaning. We build cities. We build empires. And sometimes we bury them. But time remembers. The earth remembers. And someday, someone digs it back up. The Terracotta Army is more than clay. It's more than history. It is a mirror of human dreams, of ambition, of fear, of beauty and sacrifice. A reminder that even the strongest man cannot defeat time. But maybe he can leave a story. So the next time you see a silent soldier standing with cracked hands and colorless eyes, ask yourself, what will I leave behind? What will my story be? Because the past is never truly gone. It waits, buried in silence, until we are ready to listen.